I actually forgot a missile expansion back here, so because this is a 100% playthrough like I did for all the other 3D Metroids, I'm gonna want to grab that right quick, and I can't believe I kind of missed it because it was obvious, of course. Since the power's on now, we can activate this console, and everything will turn on and light up, and we can actually go through that shaft right there towards the left. But this does give me a brief opportunity to talk about why the navigation rooms probably are the way they are, really, because in Metroid Fusion it did continue what Super Metroid did by having energy refill rooms, missile refill rooms, and map rooms all kind of being separate, except in Fusion's case, sometimes they would all be back to back to back in a way that didn't really make sense. You would go in one room, get your energy refilled, and then you go to the next one, and that's where you get your missiles refilled. So it's kind of like the developers in that game didn't really want to sprinkle the rooms throughout the area you were in, the given area anymore, so I guess in this game they just decided to forego it completely and just add everything together all at once. It's not something that I mind too much, really. I mean, I find it more convenient than anything else, and I never really, in Super Metroid, was ever hurting for like a missile refill station or something like that. Kinda goes the same for the Prime games too, so I get the consolidation. And wow, I love this visual right here, getting to see outer space and stuff like that. Looks really nice.
Samus, go through the hatch on your right and head towards Sector 1. Lyle went ahead to secure a route to a facility of interest. I'll leave you to survey Sector 1.
Sector 1, huh? Wow, what an original naming convention. I've never heard that one before in a Metroid game. Yeah, of course, they use the exact same names for the different sectors in Metroid Fusion. Yeah, tell me if you've heard that one before, right? I mean, I sound like a broken record and it's only episode 3. Like, how many times am I gonna have to say that, yeah, this was clearly inspired by Metroid Fusion? Did I say Super Metroid again? Because I know I got that confused in the last episode, which I apologize for. Yeah, Other are so much from Metroid Fusion, right down to the very naming of the various sectors, right down to the setting, being a centralized kind of space station-like thing, a really big spaceship. I don't really know how to put it. I have to wonder, like, you're doing the first 3D game, Sakamoto, the director, and I'll just call him Sakamoto from here on out. You're doing your first 3D game in Metroid, right? You've got a lot to build off of with the Prime series. A lot of the hard work has theoretically already been done for you as far as it comes to adapting Metroid into a 3D space. So why on earth did you default back to Fusion for so many of these design philosophies? And not just the focus on narrative and having Samus kind of monologue to herself, but also the naming conventions of the areas, like the exact setting itself, which is really weird because all the previous Metro games that he directed, save for Fusion, took place on different planets. Excuse me right there, well not different planets, but just planets in general, so why go back to the whole space station thing? Especially right when you did it with Fusion already. I don't know, just kind of confusing, really. But I did see the one little power-up/expansion that we can get up here, so I'm going to have to dodge the puffers right here. Another classic Metroid enemy. I know they're not called puffers, but that's just what I've called them from the very beginning, just like the Zoomers and how I used to call them Zoombas, because I thought that was funny back in the day. Yes, I know it's not. But we're going to take down this guy right here and get what is going to be a brand new pickup exclusive to Other M so far. The energy parts. And speaking of lifting things directly from other games, yeah, if we get 4 of those, we'll get an energy tank. Again, I've never heard that one before, so why lift an item straight out of the Zelda series of all things? Well, I think it's because, again, like I said, Other M can be kinda stingy on the energy sometimes, and stingy on the energy tanks, I guess to increase the difficulty, or just put less of an emphasis on having to collect it. So I think by splitting these energy tanks into 4, they actually have a collectible without turning it into an actual energy tank. Kinda stingy, if you ask me, but... oh god, looks like we have more of these things right here. So again, the overblast seems to be working sometimes, but you can tell it's not all too reliable. I think you really have to aim for the eyes, and they have to be standing still. Yeah, like that one right there. I do like the spectacle of it, but it makes taking these guys down kind of brain dead, which is why I think is the reason that there are not a whole lot of enemies like this in the game where you can just jump on top of them, overblast them, and then that's that. We're not going to see two enemies that are like that. Okay, and with that should unlock the door, and are we getting close to Sector 1? Huh. There's some pretty interesting music right here, as this is going to be the main elevator, yeah. And I gotta say, even right down to the freaking, like, design of the elevator itself, it just screams of Metroid Fusion. You know that little graphic you would see in Fusion? Indicating, you know, where you were in relation to everything else? Just kinda looks like that, too.
For Sector 1. A level 3. Warning is now in effect in Sector 1. Please avoid traveling alone and remain armed. Stay alert to your surroundings at all times.
And of course, this is going to be the proper elevator that we have here in Other M. Very reminiscent of elevators of the past, especially, again in Fusion, where we would have plot tidbits from time to time. I guess Zero Mission did that as well. You'd have like the brief little cutscenes here and there whenever you went on an elevator to a brand new place. That's something Prime didn't really do. They were just kind of unabashed loading screens for the most part. Although I don't think Samus ever monologues in any of these elevators, so it at least differentiates itself from Fusion in that way. But here we are in Sector 1, and... okay, well we can't really tell from right here, but... and... the Biosphere, huh? Wow, and it looks kind of just like Sector 1 from Fusion as well. You'll recall back in Metroid Fusion, Sector 1 was specifically modeled after the environment of SR388, which was kind of this tropical environment from time to time, although I don't remember seeing any tropical environment back when I played Metroid 2 Return of Samus for the first time. I couldn't really tell there was any vegetation whatsoever, but we have another one of these hives back here, so I'm going to go ahead and try to take that down right quick before any more of these guys can spawn. Yeah, we're going to see these hives a lot here in the Biosphere in Sector 1. So, if you were just going to take the names from Metroid Fusion, why on earth would you take the design from the first Sector 1, from Sector 1 in Fusion as well? Why would you model it after kind of this tropical, plant-filled, like, area too? At least that's kind of what it was in Metroid Fusion to begin with. It changed as you got further on into the area, but I do have a theory about this, and I think there's actually precedence for this within Japanese development studios, but we will get to that in a bit as we have... whoa! Mini-boss time! Whoa! Good thing I reacted right there so we could have that pretty badass grabbing of the tail segment. So, we have these chameleons right here, these weird lizard-like things, and these guys tend to always hunt in twos, so you're going to want to watch out for that. And just like any chameleon, they can blend in with their environments. This guy's not doing it so much, and I really should keep my distance, because this is not the normal pattern that these guys have. But what will happen is that usually they'll both be invisible, and you have to find a way for them to break their invisibility and dodge their attacks at the same time. So this can actually be kind of difficult. Okay, so they're kind of invisible right now, so what we can do, we can see the general area that they're coming from, but we can still lock on with a missile while they are turned invisible. So that's a really good strategy if you just can't manage to see where these guys are at any given time. And also when they're not visible either, missiles are also another good way to just damage them, which is what I'm going to do right now, because he's turning invisible as we speak. Alright, we'll go ahead and do that. And boy, and since there is two of them, they tend to always hunt in pairs. I can't really think of an instance where you fight only one of these guys at a given time. So keep trying to keep our distance right here, and that'll be it for that one right there. We can lethal strike the second one, or I can just beat these guys without lethal striking altogether. That's too bad. I really wanted to show off the lethal strike. It's actually quite awesome, but don't worry, we'll fight more of these guys in the future. But I spy with my eye right here a grapple beam point that we can't use for some reason. Yeah, remember how I said that sometimes the lack of Samus being able to use some of these upgrades wouldn't make any sense besides it just being something that the gameplay would have to do because it's a Metroid game? Yeah, that's one of the instances right there. Because, again, I can buy, like, maybe not go crazy with the super missiles and the plasma beam right off the bat because we're worried about collateral damage and things like that. What kind of collateral damage could Samus possibly do with a freaking grapple beam? You know, and I get it, you know, traditionally you kind of get the grapple beam late in the Metroid game. I think the only exception to that really is probably Prime 3. Yeah, Prime 3 where you get it really early on. And Prime 1 and Prime 2 you didn't get it until the game was almost functionally over pretty much, from what I remember. And of course in Super and Fusion, and even Zero... did Zero Mission have the grapple beam? I don't think Zero Mission even had the grapple beam. I think it was just Super Fusion. Actually, did Fusion have it either? Oh, regardless, in Fusion, you didn't get it until pretty later on either. So, yeah, I get that. Again, you know, I can kind of turn off my brain and just realize that, yeah, they don't want to give us the grapple beam right off the bat because, again, kind of tradition and stuff like that, but it just doesn't make sense in the context of the restriction requirement, of the authorization requirement. And yeah, you can hand-wave it and say, yeah, collateral damage for some of these, but the grapple beam is just one of them where it just flat-out doesn't work, which makes it all the harder to buy, really. But yeah, I really kind of like the look of this area right here. People have kind of chastised Other M for not looking as good as, like, Prime 3 Corruption. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll give you that for sure. Like, it doesn't look nearly as good as Prime 3, but a lot of Wii games didn't. I think that was just something that Retro had figured out at that point. They did it with the GameCube as well, how to make games just look so much better than you would think the hardware would allow. But with that in mind, I think just comparing it to Prime 3 doesn't mean that Other M looks bad, necessarily. In fact, I kind of like the stylized look right here, how it's trying to look naturalistic, but you can tell that there really is a sterile, mechanical core to it, that it's not exactly what it's pretending to be in the moment. Well that one's actually a fair bit of distance away, huh? Well, let's continue on, though. So sometimes there'll be a large amount of space between the navigation booths, and sometimes there won't be, which is, I don't know, guess this is something they wanted to use to structure the game, stuff like that. So yeah, like I was saying before, we were fighting the double purple lizards right there, so I'll take care of these, which also look like another classic enemy that I don't know the name of. There was never really a bestiary in any of these 2D Metroid games, so they did in the 3D ones, but they didn't bring back, you know, like every classic enemy and stuff like that. But yeah, so the scenario I outlined was a scenario in which Fusion had already been made. I forgot the developer's name. I already said it once in this episode, so how on earth did I forget it? Sakamoto, yeah, how did I forget that? So Sakamoto made Fusion, and then he essentially kind of, in a lot of ways, remade Fusion with Other M. And that scenario, and I didn't know this until I actually played through the game, is very similar to what happened with Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake for the MSX, and then Metal Gear Solid for the PlayStation 1, where the two games are very, very similar, and the developer decided to essentially remake his latest 2D game in 3D and kind of create it that way, which is kind of strange how... Uh-oh. Well, more on that later, as we have another mini-boss right here, and it's going to be like a rolling armadillo by the looks of it? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Let's go ahead and get him right there, try to summon with a charge shot, and then get him with the missiles. Let's see if I can run up and do a lethal strike with this one. Yes, we can! I don't know, that's pretty badass right there, if you ask me, but I think... Yeah, these guys usually don't fight alone either. They're usually in pairs as well. Although I think there's, more than one in this case, but try to swamp me. So, a good strategy for here is just kind of like the armadillos, or not the armadillos, rather the lizards, is that you try to charge shot, and then you can use the missiles, although you don't want to fight these guys close together as they do quite the major damage. And it looks like they're kind of close together, so I would like to lure one over here if possible, then try to bring it out that way. There we go. I think that'll work. Nope, they're still just hunting really close together. Well, let's see if I can get you. There we go. I might be able to lethal strike this one now. Yep, there we go! Another badass moment. Nice! Yeah. I wish I had gotten to show off the lethal strikes with those lizards right there, because a common complaint of this game is that they feel like it just kind of makes Samus a wimp or something, and that she's just not cool anymore, but I think the gameplay kind of tells a different story. I mean, for sure, we kind of see a different Samus as far as the story and the dialogue is concerned, but out of gameplay, I don't know, she's pretty awesome. Alright, looks like we've gone a bit too far back right here. And which is kind of weird, because we'll talk more about Samus's character later, and how people claim that she's always had a character because actions speak louder than words, but for some reason the actions in Other M don't really seem valid as far as it comes to making her look really cool and kind of being that badass bounty hunter that people always kind of, I guess, assumed she was. At least just from what she does perspective, not so much what she says and stuff like that. But yeah, just kind of curious to me, kind of a contradiction of the critics of this game in some way. But again, we'll get more to that when we get to Samus's character, whenever we get to see the more, I guess, egregious portions of it that are more heavily contested by the community and gamers at large right there. But let's go ahead and refill those missiles right there. And it looks like we're going to have to go to the right. So yeah, kind of weird that Hideo Kojima did functionally the same exact thing with Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake and then Metal Gear Solid that Sakamoto tried to do with Fusion and Other M. So it's just kind of weird. I don't know why certain Japanese developers feel the need to kind of remake their previous 2D game into a 3D game. But of course, with Metal Gear Solid, it goes without saying that was implemented much better than Other M right here. But we have a missile tank right there, so wonder how I can get to that one. Let's go ahead and get over to the second tunnel right here, and there we go. Yet another missile expansion for 14 total. Sweet. And we're just going to continue on this way, because if we had kept going to the right, we would have met a locked door. Sweet. Okay, so what can we do in here? Well, I believe the direction we're going to want to go is going to be right here, because the area that we want to check out is going to be right here. The breeding room. Boy, a pretty nefarious sounding name, if you ask me.
The large cage-like booth looked like something had been raised in it. And in one corner was the miserable form of a researcher's corpse. This victim hadn't sustained the same injuries. The dead I'd seen had been torn apart by something large. This one had been attacked by a different type of creature. And as I studied the violence this creature had wrought, I felt something in the air, the presence of a dark intelligence.
Okay, so yeah, this is really creepy. We can actually go around right here. We've got dead people, it's pretty suspenseful, kind of fear-inducing, more of that horror element that Fusion had that definitely carried over into Other M. But let me ask you something. What was added by Samus monologuing right there? No, like seriously, as it looks behind us. Huh. So what was added by Samus monologuing right there, and telling us that obviously something else had killed these bodies and something like that, and she felt uneasy and stuff like that? What was added to that scene by doing that? The answer is pretty much functionally nothing, as I'm just gonna... Yeah, for sure. Yeah, rest in peace, Zoomer. You died so young, didn't you? Now, let me ask you another question kind of in light of that. What would have been added to that scene by... Can I just... Oh yeah, we can just spring ball by pressing 2. Yeah, I knew that. Ha! So, what would have been added to that scene? This is another question. What would have been added to that scene by Samus shutting her mouth and not saying anything about it? I think that scene would have been far more effective, as we're not going to be able to get through here because... Super Missile! Which we can't use yet, yay. I think that scene would have been way more effective if Samus hadn't said anything at all, really. And I think that's another core problem with the game. She kind of monologues and talks when she really shouldn't, but another locked door, so I guess we have to head back. Great, another one of these. Thankfully, this is another pretty obvious one because we saw this little tuft of bush right here ruffle, but again, I think these are one of the worst parts of the games, and they haven't gotten too egregious yet, but they will. Trust me, they will.
Samus, proceed through the hatch I just unlocked. Your next destination is a little further ahead.
Okay, wait. Okay, beside the whole cute little creature thing right there, which was kind of weird, but you're telling me Adam could have unlocked this door all along? What? Wow, I kind of forgotten how unnerving that scene actually is. Yeah, just looking at the little puffball like that, wow. Yeah, I had forgotten how unnerving that was. Wow, I feel a little unnerved watching it, and I kind of knew it was coming. But yeah, so you're telling me that Adam could have unlocked that door all along. So I'm assuming that he wanted us to go to the breeding room to begin with, but why didn't he just say that? Like, why didn't he tell us when we got to the locked door, hey, I'm locking this door for some reason, so go somewhere else? And a better question, why would you lock the door to begin with if you have the opportunity and the ability to just unlock all the doors? Like, I don't see a reason why we want these doors not unlocked for all of us to use as we're going through the station, because there's more than one person here. I mean, I guess the only logic would be we don't want monsters to be able to get through the door, but I don't really see any indication that the monsters would know how to use the door, that the doors would open for them, as, something interesting right there. Yeah, I don't understand why Adam had to be like, okay, I can unlock this door right now. Like, why not just have it unlock strangely without an explanation, as Metroid has done in the past? It just makes Adam look like more like a dunce, honestly. It's kind of a reoccurring theme with the game, too. It's just kind of like, dude, I don't understand why we're doing this. I shouldn't really say reoccurring. I don't think it's as bad in some spots as people like to say sometimes, but as it goes to the authorization requirement, and now this with just unlocking and locking doors kind of arbitrarily, it just doesn't really make sense to me a lot of times. Again, I feel like there were solutions, and that's what really bothers me about this game, is that I feel like there were solutions that were like non-stupid solutions, and solutions that okay, maybe they could have just been explained away as, like, game-like things, but solutions that wouldn't have compromised the characters or led to an even more stupid situation to begin with, which, in and of itself, that is just frustrating. It's frustrating. Very, very frustrating.